Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and that technicolor rainbow in between, this video will be discussing content that is for adults only. If you are not one, or at least not well on the way to being one, do not watch this video. For those of you who are, however, buckle your seatbelts, because it's about to get real. Anime. The medium which all of us on this channel partake in and adore, or at least I assume so, given that you clicked on a video with this title. There is a magic in our favourite mode of storytelling, with the ability to make us feel emotions more viscerally than the most vivid of dreams, the artistic depth and complexity allowing us to suspend our disbelief to such an extent that the most incredible fantasy or sci-fi stories seem completely believable. Anime has an inherent intangible power that no other form of media possesses. But of course, as with every form of media since cave paintings, there is one subject that always, comes to the fore. A subject so ubiquitous and all-encompassing, it ends up dominating our thoughts, our bodies, our popular cultures, and during our adolescence, practically all of life itself. That is, of course, the ancient art defined by the Romans as cicus clapitus, or in the polite vernacular, maximus fornicatus. In our modern political landscape, you could even call it securing the future for our nation, or seizing the means of reproduction, depending on which side of the aisle you're on. It goes by many names, but we all know exactly what it is. And unless you fall under the very small minority of the Ace Gang, all of us know its overwhelming power to destroy our faculties of reason. Reproduction, after all, is the strongest impulse of all life besides self-preservation, so it's only natural that the horizontal tango features so prominently in all of our cultures. It forms a cornerstone of our entire identity, from how we define ourselves to how others define us. Who we love, who we associate with, who we trust and who we fear. Emotionally, physically, and spiritually, sexuality strikes at the heart of the human condition. Unlike with everything else, here too, anime has the ability to explore complex ideas, indulge our darkest desires, and push the boundaries of society further outward, often making us question whether we should, only after proving that we could. In the world of animation, there is no limit to the level of perversion or depravity that one can delve down to. Fantasy creatures, interspecies, all of the tags that if found on your hub account will get you investigated by the FBI. Many have questioned its morality. Others have argued for and against its legality, but there is one thing beyond dispute. This medium.
It's called hentai, and it's art.
Or at least it could be. In reality, like the majority of human endeavour, it's not an art. It's a mechanical process, a corporate commodity, something we consume just to fulfill a particular need. One of the most common mantras in both advertising and media production is sex sells. It's something 99% of us think about. This little voice inside our brains sees a shapely pair of calcium dispensers, or a washboard of chiseled abdominal muscles, and all of a sudden, we are hovering over the watch now button like the filthy, hairless primates we are. Just look at the thumbnails all over YouTube, especially for some of my anime-influenced history videos on my main channel. If I have a scantily clad girl in the thumbnail, I get a much higher percentage of views and a comment section begging for the source than if I just put a picture of a tank or a ship there. And therein lies the biggest issue with anime today. In recent years, we've been hit with a typhoon of trashy shows, the most obvious pandering garbage that appeals to the very worst of our community. Anime that is so obviously predicated in its fan service while still trying to ride the line of social acceptability and conform to broadcast regulations so that it can be aired in the mainstream. And this isn't just limited to the harem isegai waifu Olympics genre. This level of fan service has slithered its tentacles, metaphorically and in some cases very, very literally, into every branch of our medium. Even the most serious of shows these days have moments where sexual gratification, mostly aimed at the male demographic, takes precedence, and in darker instances, where sexual assault is portrayed not as the horrific crime it is, but rather as the justification to have a female character in a degrading sexual position while fitting the narrative context. Looking at you, Ecchi Kawahara. But while I have my complaints about all these shows, there is one type of show which we are seeing more and more of that I just can't abide. It is a type of show I refuse to accept and am thus on a crusade against. A genre which shares the title of this video. Just make a f***ing hentai. Please. For the love of God. These are shows so rooted, again, both metaphorically and literally, in their fan service. Only now, instead of being an uncouth accessory to a show, they are literally the framework upon which the entire show exists. Since the early 2010s, we have seen a stream become a raging torrent of nothing but absolute wastes of animation budget, for the sole purpose of creating softcore nonsense that can just barely be shown on television. I can list any number of shows. Why the Hell Are You Here, Teacher? World's End Harem, Eromanga Sensei, the dumpster fire that was Conception. But by far, the most egregious and aggravating one for me personally is Do You Love Your Mum and her 2-hit multi-target attacks, aka the MILF-Sekai. Seriously, within the first arc, they encounter a slime monster that only melts clothing, rendering his mum naked, and because it's slime, she slips and falls all over her son in the most obnoxiously Freudian positions possible. Like, come on! Just make a MILF hentai, guys. It's not hard. And so here we are. Now we're here in 2023. The panty shop plague besieging us without respite or relent, where I must invoke a prayer to the anime gods, a request, nay, a vindication for my crusade of the righteous. Allow me to explain. I'm no stranger to trashy anime. I'm a Strike Witches fan, for goodness sake. I have their figures on the wall behind me. On the contrary, I adore trashy anime. I have a love for ecchi shows that aggravates my co-host on this channel to no end. We had a fight about High School of the Dead, which I'll talk about later. Every time we roll a random generator and get an ecchi show, I whoop for joy as I relish in the anguished cries of despair from my best friend and fans alike. But there has to be a good story, or at least a robust narrative and world-building framework for that ecchi to reside in for me to like it. For example, the best ecchi show ever made, and my personal favourite battle shonen series ever, is Food Wars. Taken on its own, Shokugeki no Soma is an amazing series with amazing characters, great music, awesome animation, and of course, gratuitous food porn. The food in this anime is the true star, despite the massive cast of attractive men and women who have never skipped gym day or wear clothes in their life. But the term food porn in this case has more than one meaning, as I'm sure you are all aware. They have literal foodgasms, and in these moments everything is on show, and it's genius, because the level of explicit imagery corresponds to the taste, be it good or bad, allowing for the indulgence of ridiculous levels of fan service while preserving the suspension of disbelief. Food Wars does almost everything right as far as an ecchi show is concerned, and I love it. But, as I mentioned, I am not just a fan of well-executed ecchi. Oh no, I like other things too. I appreciate a show. In fact, it's my passion. I appreciate a show that knows exactly what it's about and doesn't give a f*** what you think. The show I think of here is, as I said, High School of the Dead, a certified hood classic in the weeb world. This show is completely ridiculous. I watch it every year with my friends on Halloween, and it's terrible. It's awful. This show is bad. The plot is a string of convenient coincidence leading to another set piece, leading to an excessive, nay ridiculous amount of nudity even by ecchi anime standards. And it's incredible. Because this show knows exactly why you're here. It has no restraint, no pretense, and no remorse. It's a zombie apocalypse, everyone's young and hot, we have one goal. To survive and thrive. So what do? Simple. We find a safe house with running water and power for a massive bath sequence with obnoxious amounts of fan service. We also find out that that house is owned by an FBI hostage rescue sniper, so it's full of the most powerful firearms available in a country with the strictest gun laws. She also has a Humvee parked downstairs in a country with some of the smallest public roads in all of Asia, and it's military spec, But oh no, because we've had to wash our uniforms, none of us have any clothes right now, etc., etc. You get the idea. Point is, you have scenes with the president fighting zombies on Air Force One as the world goes to hell. You have a nuke going off over Tokyo. You have a beautiful F-4J Phantom conducting reconnaissance, tracking the Horde while flying over the home islands. The day the JASDF retired the Phantom was an apocalypse for my soul. But yeah, after all of that, after all of those shenanigans, you have a hot student council president riding a Humvee, wielding a samurai sword, wearing nothing but an apron, cutting down legions of the undead to save the protagonist, who is rescuing a lost child. And she does all this so they can have absolutely outrageous sex in a temple later. And of course, there's this scene. Car chases, explosions, military hardware, attractive women getting naked at every opportunity while cutting down the legions of hell with an excellent English dub, making pop culture references throughout to an aggressive rock soundtrack. Yet this show is a masterpiece. It knows what it's about, and it doesn't care. And there are other shows like this too. Valkyrie Drive is one. That is a show where a virus transforms groups of women into living weapons, and to activate their powers, they need to have lesbian sex with a compatible partner. Yes, that is real. There is also Chivalry of a Failed Knight, or Rokudai Kishi no Cavalry, which has tons of fan service, while also being incredibly funny, and for the first time, the main character is not a knob. If only High School DxD could have gotten that down, given its premium waifu cast. Also, that stripper ending with Rias just mwah, money. Anyway, my point is, you can have fantastic and ridiculous fan service shows, you just need something to justify it. Your plot needs to be good, or at the very least, your premise and world need to be gripping, in more ways than one, as it were. The problem is, the modern wave of shows don't do this. The sexual content is the primary draw, only there's no actual sexual content to be had, or if it is, it's heavily censored or obscured. But even when an anime has the balls to actually adapt the adult content from a light novel or manga, I still find myself being disappointed. Slave Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World came out recently with an uncensored version, and I was hoping that it would finally break the curse, problematic content aside. Seriously, ever since Shield Hero came out, everyone's been writing slave harem stories as though they're cool. No, it's not cool. Slavery is not cool. I'm going to write a light novel where John Brown gets isekai'd and frees definitely not Raftalia from definitely not Naofumi by stabbing him in the face. Slavery is bad, guys, come on. But no. While there are some seriously hot waifus in that show, the actual adult content is poorly animated and really lackluster. And this goes for some of the other shows too. And don't get me started on the show this season where a man gets turned into a dog, Jesus. In fact, forget Jesus, I'm gonna need Jesus after that. The only show that gets a pass in this whole pantheon of terrible shows is Interspecies Reviewers, because the world building and comedy was just fantastic. The proclivities and the turn-ons for all the various races of Monster Girl were well thought out and considered. The designs themselves were really attractive and the humour was on point every time. The only one of these I can't believe it's not hentai shows that had any credibility is, tragically, the worst show of them all. The Worst Person You Know just made a good point. I hate having to give credit to Redo of Healer, but at least they had the conviction to adapt the source directly. The censored version cuts half the show out, and for the other half, you're staring at a cropped image most of the time. It's a horrible show, with a horrible premise, but at least they had the courage to go all the way, which is far more than you can say for all these shows that market absurdly hentai-esque premises while having substandard ecchi and even more substandard action. And it's not even the kind of action we're tuning in for. But that's not the biggest crime. The biggest crime is, while all these shows are being lavished with animation budgets from big studios, the mangakas signing copies at outlets, the hentai world is one of desolate abandon. For every overflow, for every masterpiece, you have 1,000 shows bearing the cross of the horrible tag that is Studio Queen Bee Presents, hanging like a death sentence, condemning them to 2D slideshow cardboard cutout hell. All of you watching this, all of you, regardless of your gender, sexuality, colour or creed, I guarantee, I would put money that all of you have had this experience of scrolling through your site of choice, whether it be the Haven or the Hub, whatever, 2D, 3D, I don't care what you're into. All of you have been sitting there wanting to find some adult entertainment, and you've sat there scrolling and scrolling looking for just the right thing to resolve your current tension, only to be greeted by an avalanche of mediocrity, of obviously fake scenarios, poor film quality or poor animation, assets that are far beyond natural size and really uncomfortable to look at, low production value, bad concept work, all of this content unworthy of your attention. Just how long have you spent scrolling instead of satiating your needs? I know I have spent more than my fair share of time doing that. Well, no more, my friends. I say no more. We are putting this to an end, because let's be real, when watching adult entertainment, there is a limited window. You cannot waste time and money on moments where people aren't doing what you're there to see, and these people in the mainstream expect us to watch 24 minutes of build-up and no payoff at all. I say no. These budgets, these animation teams, these stories have far more potential, and it all comes back to hentai rules. For as we know, hentai rules change the equation drastically. A show like Why the Hell Are You Here, Teacher or World's End Harem are legendary setups for a hentai. So much potential, so much variation, so many different avenues to explore in more ways than one. All of that wasted or relegated to smutty comedy. When you watch them as a standard anime, they are a solid 5 out of 10. But when you transport these stories and characters into the hentai realm and use the budget to intersplice these scenes with some quality culture, they immediately go from a 5 to a 10. High quality hentai. And moreover, the space in the airing schedule is freed up. You have all this space in the airing schedule for more shows of actual merit to occupy the mainstream. Hell, with high quality hentai coming out of these studios, that frees up more space to bring in shoujo and josei anime out of the dark age and into a broad sunlit upland where everyone gets what they want, while all of these trashy shows are suddenly allowed to bloom to their full potential. A cultural revolution, a renaissance, a new generation of high quality cultured anime for the masses. The proletariat must rise and seize a new way forward. Stop with the nonsense, stop with the shenanigans, and just make a hentai. See you next time.
I cheeky, cheeky,